to the March edition of The Nest. If this is your first month subscribing, welcome. I'm Jess, and I'm one of the curators of the Nestbox. What I'm going to do is talk about what's in the box this month, as well as walk you through the cocktails that we're making. If you joined us last month, welcome back. This month we're super excited to be featuring whiskey. Whiskey is a spirit that's really, really important to Short Path. The three founders, it was the spirit that they've always wanted to make. It just takes a little bit of time when you're making an aged spirit versus a white spirit. So now that we're 5 years old, we're really starting to invest a lot of our time and energy into making whiskey. What's really special about our whiskey is that it really has this kind of homegrown New England quality to it. One of our featured partners this month is Valley Malt, and Valley Malt is our malter. So they malt all of our grains. So you see in the box, they have nicely donated some malted and unmalted barley to us, and you can kind of take it out and taste it. You'll notice that the unmalted barley is pretty hard and doesn't have a lot of flavor, but once it goes through the malting process, which basically means sprouting the grain, it becomes a little bit on the sweeter side, a little bit softer, and it has more character to it, and we make our whiskey out of 100% malted barley. So feel free to kind of take it out of the box, chew on it, see what it tastes like, and see if you can identify some of those malty flavors in the whiskey as well. So the first drink that we're going to make is a whiskey pear buck. And a buck is any cocktail that has spirit, citrus, and ginger beer in it. So the original cocktail that was Span the Buck was actually a non-alcoholic drink called a horse's neck, which was just ginger beer and lemon juice. Somebody went ahead and added a spirit to it, and it gave it kind of like a horse's kick or a buck, so that's how that term got coined. And probably the most famous buck is the Vodka Buck, which is kind of known as a Moscow Mule. So to make this drink, we're going to start by adding a ½ ounce of lime juice, and we always use fresh citrus in our cocktails because it just makes for the best drink. And we think there is usually about a ½ ounce of lime juice in each half of a lime. So we go ahead, we can squeeze that half of lime, this is to make one cocktail, right into your shaker tin. From there, you're going to add 1½ ounces of this bottle of Fernet and pear syrup. We've already put this together for you, so it's just a pear simple syrup as well as Fernet. Fernet is another spirit that Short Path makes. It's an Amaro, so it has a little bit of a bitter quality to it. Adds a little bit of depth of flavor to this cocktail. So you can do 1½ ounces. And then on top of that, we're going to add 1½ ounces of our flagship whiskey. Add a big scoop of ice, and give it a good shake. From there, you can go ahead, pour it right into a Collins glass. Add 3½ ounces of ginger beer. Top it with a little bit of ice. And then for your garnish, skewer this piece of candied ginger, set it right on the top, and cheers. There's your whiskey pear buck. Yum. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about old fashions. Old fashions are probably the most famous whiskey cocktail. And fun fact about old fashions, as well as many cocktails, it started out as a gin cocktail. So it was originally gin and bitters and water, and that was around like 1862, and then sometime about 20 years later, the addition of whiskey was subbed out for gin, and we have something close to what we kind of think of an old-fashioned today. There are so many different ways to make an old-fashioned, and I think that the reason that we chose to kind of talk about it and feature it, even though it's a pretty simple drink, is to sort of show that there are so many different ways you can make it, and there's no right or wrong way to make it. It's just basically your taste preference. So the Old Fashioned is also a perfect kind of example of what a cocktail is, and a cocktail has to have 3 ingredients in it to be considered a cocktail. So Old Fashioned is sugar, bitters, and spirit, and those are your 3 ingredients. So for this one, we're going to start with these aromatic sugar cubes that we made as kind of the way to show the sugar and the bitters together. So this is a sugar cube that has both Angostura, aromatic, and orange bitters in it. And so how we're going to start with this is we're going to kind of break this up into the bottom of our glass and crush some of that sugar in there. You want to get it like pretty diluted, but you don't have to crush it completely. From there, we're going to add 1.5 ounces of whiskey. As well as some ice. And take this for a spin. And because not only are you diluting the cocktail down, but you're also kind of melting some of the sugar in there, you're going to stir it for a pretty good amount of time because you want to incorporate the sugar and the spirit together. So I would say like 45 seconds to a minute. And even after you finish stirring it, you'll notice the cocktail will start diluting because it's on ice, so it'll get a little bit colder, it'll get a little bit mellower, and you'll see some of the sugar starting to dilute in there. Most of it's gone, so it should be okay. You can take a sip of it from there. Kind of test to see if you think it's sweet enough, if you think it's bitter enough, because we've also included a little bottle of, this is sugar in just its simple syrup form, so liquid, as well as aromatic bitters and orange bitters. So if you think that it's not sweet enough or not bitter enough, you can always go ahead and add a dash or 2 more. You can kind of keep adding this until you feel that it's to your liking. And then once it is bitter enough, sweet enough, boozy enough for you, we're going to garnish it with an orange peel. So we're going to go ahead and cut a swath off of this. And then you hold it between your thumb, your index, and your middle finger with the white part or the pith facing you and this facing out, and you kind of just squeeze the orange oil into the glass. And then you also want to sort of rub the rind along the outside and put it into the glass, and what that does is it gets the orange oil into the cocktail, so it brings out some of those orange flavors that we know an Old Fashioned has, as well as it gets that kind of rind flavor on the side of your glass, and then also in your fingers, so it kind of has this like full sensory experience. And from there, you can go ahead and take a sip. And cheers. So those are your 2 cocktails. Please enjoy this box. Join us at our happy hour, and we'll see you soon.